Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Career Safer. So today we will explore property binding in Angular with examples. So property binding is a one-way binding from components to view. That means it lets you set a property of element in the view to property in the component. Okay. So what is the syntax? Syntax will be like this. This is the syntax. So binding target will be in square bracket and this is the binding source. Means binding target is the property in the HTML element. This is the property of components. Okay, so let's have a example like this. Let me define a property like this: title equal to Angular property binding demo. Okay, binding demo, just save it. So what I'll do, I'll add a h1 HTML element. What I'll do, I have a inner HTML property. So what we are doing here, we are binding inner HTML property of h1 element to title property of component. Okay, let's save it. Go back to browser. See, it's reflecting here, right? So the binding source, this portion must be a template expression. It can be a property in the component or method in the component. You can say like this: property in component. It can be a method of component. Okay, next what it can be, a template reference variable, or what it can be, a expression containing all of them. Okay, all of them. So this binding source must be any one of the following. It can be a property, it can be method in the component, it can be template reference variable, or it can be expression containing all of them. Okay, this binding source should not change the state of application. That means the Angular evaluates the template expression, it is binding source, to read the value from component. It then populates the view. If expression changes any of component value, then the view would be inconsistent with model. Hence we need to avoid some things. That means we cannot do some kind of operation using binding source. So what are those? So we cannot do the following things. First, what we cannot do, assignments like plus, minus, equal to, we cannot do like this, etc. Second thing, what we cannot do, we cannot use keywords like new instance of, type of, etc. Third thing, we cannot use chaining expression. Okay. Fourth, we cannot use increment decrement operator. Okay, that means you cannot use like this operator you cannot use. Fifth, what you cannot do, bitwise operator like pipeline, or you can have this, you cannot use. Okay, these things we cannot use with property binding. Okay, because this will change the component state. So in some cases we are having property name in camel cases, right? Property name in camel cases, right? Some cases while property name are in camel cases, while their corresponding attributes are not. For example, row span and call span. Okay, these are properties of table. Okay, but their corresponding attribute will be in small case. So this is the restriction, so you need to remember this. One more thing in property binding is this brackets. You need to remember this brackets. This bracket tells Angular to evaluate the template expression, that means that is the binding source. If you omit the bracket, Angular treats this expression as a constant string and initialize the target, that means this one binding target, with that string. So let's have an example. So already we are having a here h1 element having property inner HTML, so we just remove the square bracket. Let's see what happened. So it's here, see, it's treated as a string because we have removed the square bracket. Okay, so attribute binding. Sometimes what happened, like there is no HTML element property to bind. That means like dataset attribute, area attribute, we don't have any corresponding property to bind. So in that scenario, what we are doing, attribute binding. So we'll have like, we'll do like attr dot, this is a syntax, then you can use data hyphen id, data hyphen name, like this. So equal to some value, like I put 1, can put like this. Already we are having a HTML h1 element, just put it here, equal to 1. If you save it here, just put a bracket here, see, data hyphen id equal to 1. Irrespective of data, you can put this thing also, no issue. See, data id equal to this. Okay, it's working correct, super. So next what we will have, we have already, you have in previous tutorial we have discussed regarding interpolation. If you haven't seen, then go back to my tutorial, just have a look there. Okay, then what is the difference between property binding and interpolation? So it looks like we can do the same thing here and there, then why we will have two different things? Okay, everything that can be done in interpolation can also be done using property binding. Interpolation is actually a shorthand for property binding to the text content of an element. Okay, so how we can explain, let's have an example. So we can do like this, h1, so h1, so what we can do, we can put like this. Okay, here we are doing by the help of property binding. Same thing we can do here also with the help of interpolation. Okay, so this will be same as the following property binding. Okay, so what you can do, h1 inner HTML equal to title. Okay, so it will be same as this, right? So interpolation requires the expression to return a string. So what is the difference? We can do it here interpolation, this is property binding. So what is the difference? So for better readability we can make it like interpolation, this is property binding. So what is the difference? So we can do the same thing here, same thing here. Let's save, let's have a look here. See, interpolation this thing and same as property binding this thing. So what is the difference? That means if we return a string, then we can use this interpolation thing. Interpolation requires the expression to return a string. If you set an element property to a non-string data, that means if you return here title, a object or boolean false, then this will not work. So in that scenario we need to use property binding is the best option. Okay, so in this tutorial what we have learned detail about Angular property binding. Okay, in my next tutorial I will explain event binding. So till then, have a nice day. Bye bye.